All right, welcome everybody to the first in our Marketing Spotlight series. I'm happy to present to you today Sonja Likness from Duke University. Sonja will be speaking next week at our at-home Digital Summit Conference, which you still have time to get your pass. Sonja will be talking about how to go from a regular brand YouTuber to a cool brand YouTuber. Today, we're just going to go through some general questions to learn more about Sonja and her role, and it's some things that she does at Duke with her role in social and specifically things she's doing with YouTube. But first, I got to ask, Sonja, Tar Heel, working at Duke, what's that like?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm actually about to be a double Tar Heel because I'm getting my master's degree at UNC as well, and that's where my undergrad degree is from. But I am actually a Durham native, so Duke has always felt like home to me. So I actually have quite a few colleagues at Duke who are UNC grads as well. So we can be rivals in sports and still work together. It's all good.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, the Raleigh-Durham's a great community, and hope everybody's safe there. I haven't been watching the weather. I hope with the
It's bright and sunny
or the hurricane.
We're all good.
Yeah, good. So tell me a little bit about your role at Duke. Tell us. I want to know about your team, what you're charged with, and what you're doing there generally, and what's keeping you up right today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm the director of social media and content strategy at Duke. So that means I do mostly social media and also a little bit of wrangling all of the content that we create in the central communications office at Duke and figuring out where all of that content should go. My team is fairly small, although it's larger than a lot of our teams at Duke. I have my boss, Laura Bryn, is the director of, the AVP of global communications and social media. So she has lots and lots on her plate. And she's recently taken on the writers on the team as well. And then I have two folks on my team that work directly with me on social media. I have a social media coordinator and also a videographer, which is really important to the way that we have sort of switched our social media strategy in the past little while. We're making video a lot bigger part of everything that we do on social media, including YouTube, which is what I'll be talking about next week.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I was going to ask you if you were handling some of the production in-house. And so it sounds like you have a videographer who I'm sure you keep extremely busy, because I did notice you have several YouTube channels. So is the one videographer you have for that spread across, many different departments or different tactics or channels within the university? Is that one person helping with all of those?
So the way Duke is set up, we're pretty decentralized as far as our different departments and units social media goes. So the stuff that you see that's from my office is all sort of Duke University main flagship branded stuff. So it's the institutional branded stuff. So the Duke University YouTube channel is ours. But you'll see we have lots and lots of other YouTube channels that belong to the different units and departments. And a lot of those have sort of one-man band type communicators running that sort of stuff. So while I have a videographer on my team, we don't have the bandwidth in our office to be shooting video for every team across Duke. So everybody's sort of empowered to kind of go out and make their own video. And we actually get some really good content coming in from all of our channels at Duke University. So it's a really interesting model. I think a lot of higher ed institutions are kind of set up like this with a little bit decentralized sort of communication model. But what we do here, in particular at Duke, is make sure that we're offering support to all of the different communicators at Duke. We have a social media working group that I run where we all get to sort of discuss things kind of no matter what level of the institution we're at. On my team specifically, we do most of our production in-house. And if you look at the main Duke University channel, you can see a lot of the production that we're doing in-house. We've got several series lined up, and we've got several series that we've shot a bunch of that we haven't even put up yet. So we're keeping busy, and pandemic times make it a little bit different, but we've got a lot of video production sort of going on in the background.
Now, I imagine the sports marketing department has their own video production unit, and they're probably selfish I would imagine, right? Sharing.
They do have their own video. They also have a lot of freelancers that work for them. So yeah, and then basketball, of course, is its own thing unto itself. So
Yeah. Don't mess with those guys. The crazies over there. I get it. Hey, I did notice that on one of your YouTube channels that you have one specifically that is all student run. Is that one of the ones that you're responsible for? Tell me about that a little bit, how that's working out.
Yeah,
I find that interesting.
Yeah, we have a suite of channels that are branded Duke students, and that Duke students team reports up to me, and they're housed out of our office. It's student editors that run each one of those channels. So we've got YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Medium, Snapchat, and TikTok. I think that's all of them. So we roughly have one editor per channel, and they get to decide and sort of curate the content that goes on their channels. We set out some general rules at the beginning of the year and the semester, and we make sure that they know that they have to stay sort of within the boundaries that we set for them. But really, they have a lot of freedom to decide what kind of content goes on those channels, and they're curating and composing that content themselves. So they've got a student editor in chief. They meet about once a week and just kind of coordinate everything, but mostly they're working on their own to kind of get that content up and ready to go.
Yeah. Now, is the work that they're doing, is it mainly students for students, or are they trying to talk to an audience of prospective students, or like what's sort of their strategy for that?
Yeah, it's mainly current and prospective students, and it's mainly undergrads, just because we mostly have undergrads on the team, or we've always mostly had undergrads on the team. Every now and then we get a grad student who's interested, but it's mostly undergrads. A lot of it is sort of a way to give prospective students a perspective that they wouldn't necessarily get from the grown-ups in the room. So they get to hear answers from real live students who are going through the Duke experience and who have a lot that they can share.
Yeah, and you mentioned TikTok, and I know it's been in the news a lot lately. I'm not going to go down that path, but I find it interesting that you talked about upping the game in video, and specifically your talk next week is about YouTube. So how are you looking at the differences between YouTube, Facebook, and we've got to think about TikTok? Is TikTok an important part of the strategy, and how do you balance those?
Yeah, so whenever we have a new social media platform sort of crop up, like TikTok did this year, we always kind of take a look at it first before we jump right in. And in fact, when TikTok came out this year, the students on my student team told me that they were too old for TikTok and they didn't want to do it. So that shows you how young TikTok actually skews. That's not quite as much of a thing anymore. Sort of, it's getting more adoption. And a lot of times with the setup that we have, we try the new platforms with the students first, because they have a little bit more freedom than we do on our institutional channels. So we can get away with sort of a little bit more experimentation with the Duke students channels than with the institutional channels. So some things we roll out first to Duke students, some things we roll out exclusively to Duke students. So we've had a Snapchat account since Snapchat began, basically, for Duke students. Don't know how much longer that's going to last, but we have one. And we never had one for the institution because we didn't think that the audience on Snapchat would care to hear from Duke University as an institution. We wanted them to hear directly from the students. So there's definitely some strategy involved in there. I think all of the platforms that we are seeing sort of change and adapt, and even new ones that we see coming up, I think they're all going to be fairly video heavy. We've seen that trend for a number of years now, and that's why I pushed to have a video editor on my team. That's a new position that's been in place for only a couple of years, and I really wanted that position on my team as a social media director because video just keeps becoming more and more important for social media. So I think it's going to continue along that trend for sure.
For sure. And do you ever look at, and I'm curious to look at it from this angle, but Duke University, prestigious university, do you ever look at sort of certain social channels or doing things a certain way in social and saying that's not on brand? We would not do it that way. Other universities may get away with that, but we're not doing that.
Yeah, we do. We think about our brand and our voice. We don't have an institutional TikTok. We might not, depending on what happens with TikTok in the next little while, but we were thinking about having an institutional TikTok, but shifting it so that we're not doing as much of the silly stuff that most individuals and even some institutions are doing on TikTok, because we didn't think that would fit with sort of the image that we wanted to put forth from the institutional channels. So we do definitely think about that, and we shift a little bit for each platform too. So if you're in social media, you probably are already thinking about the difference in your voice on Instagram than your voice on Twitter. And we know that our audiences are different there, and we can use sort of different tones, more snarky, less formal, that sort of thing on certain channels. And we know that our audiences are in different places, so we have different demographics in each different channel, and we definitely think about that.
Yeah, there's never anybody being snarky on social media. All right, so let's talk about next week. Again, Sonja is going to be presenting at the Digital Summit at Home, which again, you still have opportunity to get a pass. Join us. And so her title, or her topic title, the title of her session will be how to go from a regular brand YouTuber to a cool brand YouTuber. So Sonja, can you tell us about that a little bit and what we can expect?
Yeah, so I'm basically going to break it down for you how YouTubers do YouTube and how you as a brand can do YouTube like a YouTuber. And the big secret here, without sort of giving away all the takeaways and everything, is that YouTubers use YouTube like social media. So you may wonder why the social media team at Duke has the YouTube channel, but it's because we think of YouTube as social media. There are a lot of features that you're probably not using on YouTube. When you think about right sizing for your different social media channels, you also have to think about that for YouTube as well. So a lot of brands are using YouTube just as sort of a bucket to host all of their video, but there's so much more you can do, and that's why YouTubers are successful at it. So I'll just give you some hints and tricks and ways to do YouTube like the YouTubers do.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You know, at one point we were looking at, you know, the slide share of the world and stuff and saying, okay, well, is YouTube nothing but a video sharing channel or a platform, the way a slide share is, or, you know, the way there are the photo sharing. But I think you're right. I think, you know, we kind of get lost sometimes in thinking about how YouTube can be a social channel. And a lot of brands, you know, they just turn off those comment sections and you're right, they just dump their content there and it becomes a repository for all their videos. So I think that's great. We're looking forward to it. Another question for you is, what trends do you see with YouTube, and, you know, how is that affecting like your overall strategy and direction?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually really nerdy and about YouTube trends.
We're all a little nerdy. Come on.
A little nerdy about it. And that is partly because of my job, but also partly because I'm in grad school for digital communications. And a lot of my work in grad school has centered around sort of researching what works on YouTube, what video lengths work on YouTube, that sort of thing, what kind of content works on YouTube, what sort of educational content specifically works on YouTube. And one sort of surprising thing that I found is that longer videos are working better on YouTube than you would think. For a long time, everybody was telling you your videos had to be under 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 6 minutes, or they would pull some number out of thin air and say your video has to be shorter than this arbitrary timestamp. And that's not the case anymore. Lots and lots of YouTubers are doing videos that are 10 minutes and longer. And I think that as brands and as institutions, we're going to see that trend sort of trickle into our fields as well. We have some anecdotal evidence, especially from the Duke students channels, that our longer videos that we think maybe wouldn't do as well actually do really well. And you hear all these statistics about how everybody's got the attention span of a goldfish or whatever, but we're getting a lot of really good views on our longer videos. So I think longer videos is one of those trends that we're going to keep an eye on and figure out how we can do those and how we can incorporate that into our strategy.
Yeah, well, with a lot of people spending time at home, I'm not surprised that the longer videos, you can only binge Netflix for so long, right? So you had a session earlier this year at Social Fresh, reinventing video strategy. It was a panel. Talk about that a bit. How did that go? What were some of the key takeaways from the panel?
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways was that everybody is so much more comfortable with video now. So that's not only people who are creating video, but also individuals who are consuming video and also individuals who are interacting with video. So not only are you seeing more video from brands and institutions, you're also seeing more video from users, and you're seeing users be more comfortable with interacting with that video, either watching the video or even posting their own sort of video comments. So there's a lot more just comfort level with video. And in my industry, specifically in higher ed, what that means is that we're having an easier time getting faculty to agree to be on video. So yay, if there's something good that comes out of this pandemic, it'll be that our faculty members are actually a lot more comfortable turning a webcam on and doing their thing sort of in front of a video audience. And that's been a shift. Another sort of big takeaway from that is that people are now expecting some sort of video content with the things that you're doing as part of your marketing strategy. So you're going to get people who are expecting a video demo of your backpack or whatever it happens to be. And if you don't have that, you've got a hole in your strategy. So, so video continues to be really important and even expected from the consumers.
Yeah, I love that comment about getting people friendly on camera, getting them to trust cameras, because a lot of times people show up and you might have some low budget things that you're shooting, but even when you're outside, and you don't have a cloudy day, you've got to put up the blockers to keep the shadows out, and it becomes full set, right? And I've been around some very smart individuals, but when you ask them to write a blog post or you ask them to be on video, man, it's tough. Not everybody's got that on camera talent. So I don't envy you there. I've been in your shoes. Let's transition from that a little bit. One of the things that obviously we should address is the whole pandemic and COVID-19. We're getting close to students coming back to school. So how is that affecting some of the things that you're doing with social media, et cetera, and how you are communicating with students, and how is that impacting your strategy overall right now?
Yeah, well, my short answer is that it's making everything way harder. And I think that's probably the case across the board. We do not have a plan in place for what happens if there's a global pandemic. Like, we weren't expecting that to happen. I don't think anybody was. So a lot of what we're doing is flying by the seat of our pants. And in most cases, I would be ashamed to admit that, but I think everybody's kind of in the same boat here. I think we're all kind of just doing the best that we can. A lot of our strategy has centered around trying to keep people really informed. That includes our students, but also our staff and faculty in the Duke and Durham community. Durham is where Duke is located, and so we have a really important relationship with the city of Durham. So a lot of it has been about getting information out. A lot of it has been being really nimble about the tone that we set. And that's especially important on social media. We don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And we operate on a schedule. So we have content scheduled and it's ready to go out. And one of the things that we've had to adjust a little bit is scheduling a little less far in advance and making sure that we can be nimble enough to take everything down and completely change our plans for the day, depending on what happens in the news cycle or depending on what announcements that we're putting out. And that has been challenging, but also something that I'm really proud that my team can handle. So it's been a little bit of being in crisis mode for like however many millennia this has been going on. So we're all pretty tired, but I think that's true across the board with anybody sort of dealing with communications in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you maintain a rather robust editorial calendar that you're saying, hey, we better be flexible with this because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Yeah, exactly. And working in the office that creates a lot of the content, everybody has to be flexible now because we don't know. Like, we don't know if, there's going to be a policy change tomorrow. We don't know if something weird is going to happen in the news cycle tomorrow. And that's always been the case, but it's even more so now, like times 100.
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 has been full of surprises.
Yeah.
Hey, what's the favorite part of your job?
Oh gosh, let's see. I think my favorite part of my job is probably being allowed and able to innovate and try new things. So like I can, get my students to try TikTok, or I can put up a 10-minute long video on YouTube. And I have sort of, I think because social media is in my title, I sort of have the support from leadership to be able to do kind of wacky, crazy, innovative things and say, we had to try this because it was the brand new thing, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, but we had to try it, right? So that's probably my favorite part of my job, is being allowed to do that and being able to sort of be on the cutting edge of stuff. Because at a higher ed institution, and specifically at one that has a reputation like Duke, a lot of times it's really hard to change direction because everything is so established. But social media gets to cheat a little bit.
Yeah. You need to put wacky crazy on your business card.
Yeah, wacky crazy. We're all wacky crazy.
Yeah, on the title of your office door, right? That's the wacky crazy social person. I love it. What's the least favorite part of your job? I guess it wouldn't even be a favorite. What's the least part of the job that you don't like to do?
So part of my job working in the main communications office at Duke is crisis communications. Crisis communications comes over into social as well. And that is probably my least favorite part, and not because it's not important. It is really important. It's just often sad and exhausting. And often when we're doing crisis communications, it's not good news. And everybody hates being the bearer of bad news. So that's probably my least favorite part of my job, even though it's really important. Yeah,
I get that. All right, this has been great. Let's wrap up with one final question I have for you. As marketers, we got to pay attention to the competition. And I hate to think that, from a university, it's competition. I mean, it is in sports, and sometimes you're competing for students, and there's a lot of other areas. But at the same time, you're watching out there and saying, who's really killing it? Who's doing a great job with this? So what one university, and you can't say North Carolina, what's the one university, even though I'm wearing the Carolina blue, I did that for you on purpose. What's the one university out there that you're saying, hey man, they're killing it? If we could be like those guys, and even a brand that you really admire, that you want others to say, like, hey, pay attention to these guys here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to focus specifically on YouTube because there are so many institutions and brands that are doing so many good things across the board. So I'm just going to focus on YouTube. So shout out to West Virginia University, who has a fantastic YouTube channel. I really admire the folks that work there, and I think they do a great job. If you haven't checked it out yet, go check out their YouTube channel. And as far as brands on YouTube, this sounds really dorky, but I actually think Lego does a really nice job on YouTube. So if you ever want to go see like Lego building challenges or whatever, I think they do a really, really nice job on YouTube. So those are my picks.
Yeah, Lego's a great example. Their digital game is spot on, and they have been for years. One other thing I want to ask you is, what are the couple of the plugins or tools that you're using to help or your team is using to be productive on social that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah, I think the one that I probably use most often as sort of the content corraller is probably Trello. We have gotten our entire office on Trello so that our editorial calendar all goes on Trello. So theoretically, everything that everybody is working on goes in Trello. So we all know what's coming out and when, and we can all sort of cross-promote it on our different channels. So for me, that's probably the most important thing that I look at every day. But I mean, I use lots and lots of tools. I think that's probably the one I look at most, though.
Yeah, that's great. We get that question a lot, and even when speakers talk about the tools they're using, you see a lot of comments. They're like, "What was that again?" Everyone's looking for those tips and advice, because you look at the the MarTech stack nowadays. There's so many, and trying to weed through which are the ones that are really helping people out and productive. So I appreciate your response to that. So again, thanks for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, Sonja was our first guest here on our Marketing Spotlight series. She's going to be speaking again at our at-home series of events. Our next one's coming up next week in August. You still have time to get your pass. Sonja, we look forward to seeing you next week, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.